Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, promotional products and design. They cover your brand bumper to bumper with graphic design, promo products, and print. See what Dire Oil Graphics can build for you at direoil.com. That's DYEROIL.com.
Welcome to Beers with Nigel. It's a podcast about beer and other stuff. Or other things. I'm Nigel. Next to me is the Nick Parker. Say hello, Nick.
I don't know where the came from.
Well,
I feel like now I have expectations. And my life is about avoiding expectations.
Well, I think our guest might have called you, the Nick Parker. So
I'll take that.
Let's welcome to the show Bryan Busby from Channel 9 and all sorts of other things around Kansas City. How are you doing, Bryan?
I'm fine. How are you?
We're lovely. Thanks for coming on, man. We know for you it's a challenge that you work weekdays and we normally record on weekdays. So
right. I feel out of place though because it's Nick and Nigel and I'm with a B, Bryan. So it's like.
Well, yeah, that's kind of yeah.
Is it too late in your career to change your name?
Probably. What's funny is people ask me, is Bryan Busby my real name? Because I guess it sounds like a stage name to some people. And so if I'm going to mess with them, I'll say, actually, I am Jewish. My last name is Barney Bluffnaven. And we decided to change it to something that's only 10 letters long so it could fit at the bottom of the screen. And some people are like, wait, yeah, hold on. So for like a nanosecond, they bought into it.
Are stage names a thing in the meteorologist world?
Not just meteorology, just in broadcasting in general, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I consider you a step above the other TV people.
Oh, thank you. Well, if you have an odd last name, they may want you to use your middle name, or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's out there. Quite a few. I won't mention names, but there are a couple in the market.
I've had two radio names. My original radio name in college was Charlie Wood for some reason.
That seems like that was a bad night of drinking.
I don't know. Yeah, and then when I became actual professional on the radio, Nigel Knight was the shout out.
That's strong.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie Wood would be like Woodchuck.
Pretty
last
much.
Name first name last. Woodchuck.
I don't know. It sounded cool at the time. It was a jazz station, so Charlie Wood.
All right.
I don't know. Yeah, but anyway. So, Bryan, we could, surely we could. You're not just a weather man or a meteorologist. If you're going to have to explain who Bryan Busby is, how would you describe yourself?
Wow. I've been called a Renaissance man, which is kind of weird. It's almost like being called the Nick. Weather was a love of mine and became part of my life in third grade, and I just wanted to explain why I was so afraid of thunder. I wanted to know what caused it, And so the only job I knew of knowing about weather was the guy I saw on TV, a gentleman by the name of Dick Goddard, who I grew up watching in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And just to show you that 2020 has sucked this year, my mentor, Dick Goddard, at the age of 89, died of COVID back in July.
Oh, damn. Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah. So it does exist. It is real, But it was that in third grade that I said, I want to be on TV. But, back when I was in third grade, there weren't that many people of color on television. So,
zero, probably.
One, he was a reporter as opposed to an anchor or a sports person or a weather person.
Gotcha.
And he didn't care. He saw this kid was interested and passionate about wanting to know what caused thunder. And so in the late 60s, he invited me down to the station. And I went there from third grade through 12th grade once a year to go down to the station. And I was toying between that and music. You guys know I'm into music as well. And I was either going to be a classical musician playing in an orchestra or a TV meteorologist. And I remember finally deciding on to be a TV meteorologist. So I went to him and I said, thanks for being so nice to me all these years. You've been very, very helpful. I decided to go into TV meteorology. How can I pay you back? And Mr. Goddard had a very odd sense of humor. Very wry sense of humor. So he said, well, if you're lucky and you get in this business, some young man or some young lady will probably call you 5 minutes before you're due on set and ask you questions. Then he stared at me. And it took me a minute for the light bulb to go off. Did I do that to you? Yeah. And so he just said from that moment on, just pay it forward. So my interests are meteorology, music, and one of my hobbies is doing, voice acting, which is kind of fun.
Right.
being like a voice for cartoons and stuffed animals and that sort of thing, which is kind of cool. So
Now
I
we
get
can
to
hear
do
the
that.
contractors working now.
Yes.
There's some knocking back
Hold on.
there.
See, there they are. There they are.
Getting some deck work there.
Yeah.
That's a nice deck.
Thank you. Well, I've been told.
Right, phrasing. Ba-dum-bum.
Yes.
It's here all week. Tip your waitress.
But anyway, so you know, I don't know. I'd say those are probably my biggest three interests: meteorology, music, and I guess humor and doing voices, which is kind of fun.
Do you have any characters that you do?
Well, I mean, I do imitations of the more established characters, like the one that they make me do on Dana and Parks. If you listen to them on KMBC,
Yeah.
for some odd reason, Scott Parks loves my Cartman.
Oh, really? Can you give us a little bit?
Guys, I'm doing him. So yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
you know,
Yeah,
three semesters,
I like that.
3 semesters of calculus, and I'm doing Cartman.
SpongeBob SquarePants. I can do SpongeBob as well. You know, that's amazing, Patrick.
Anyway, those are just a couple. And probably my closest claim to fame was a friend of mine who's out in LA, was friends with the lady who was the #1 recruiter for Disney. And so there was the movie The Emperor's New Groove. You ever see the movie?
Yeah.
The Emperor's New Groove? Yes.
Yeah.
And Yzma was played by Eartha Kitt. And then,
Right.
of course, they did the spinoff on television, The Emperor's New School, on Saturday mornings, cartoon. And when Eartha died, they were looking for a replacement for Eartha Kitt. And I made it to the top 3, from what I understand.
Really?
Crunk, this is kind of important. Ooh, feel the power.
So, yeah.
That's
I thought it
great.
would have been fun for me to be sitting in one of my rooms in my house, you know, in boxers, on a speakerphone with the
Right.
producers out in LA doing Yzma. That'd be kind of fun.
So
Yeah.
at what point as a kid did you figure out you could do voices?
3rd grade. No, 4th grade. I'm sorry, 4th grade. There was, because my voice was higher back then, and one of my best friends just kept taunting me and messing with me. So I talked like Mrs. Mack, who's a librarian, and I probably can't do her voice now because my voice is lower, but I called my best friend Miles and told Miles to meet me out in front of the school before school because he was in trouble because he didn't turn in a library book. Now, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and this was the winter. So poor Miles is out there in like 18 degrees and 7 inches of snow, just shivering. And Mrs. Mack drives up and he's like, you know, did you want to see me? And she's like, what are you talking about? So, like, you know, 15 years later, I finally told him that was me. And he said, ooh, yes. Anyway,
The things you could get away with in the ages before caller ID.
yes, this is true. This is true. And I mean, now this is like the Jetsons. You know, you can actually see each other while talking, which is kind of fun.
Yeah,
Right.
That's really. I'd never thought about it like that. But you're right. The Jetsons had this, didn't they?
Mhm.
They had the
lot of
watches. We could, you know,
Right.
Spectre Gadget or whatever. So you've told me this story before, but I worked in television. I worked for a bunch of different stations.
Mhm.
You haven't worked very many places. Tell us where you
Well,
started and how you ended up at Channel 9.
I was blessed to only been in 2 markets, both in Missouri, St. Louis and Kansas City. Those are the 2 markets I've worked in. And I was a freshman at St. Louis University, working on my meteorology degree. And my college roommate, you guys know, Fox 4's Joe Loria,
Oh, that's right.
and I were college roommates. We were the only 2 who wanted to go into broadcasting in the whole department, so we kind of gravitated to one another. But freshman year at St. Louis U, they were just now starting weekend news because, believe it or not, way back in the 70s and the 80s, they did not have news all 7 days a week,
Right.
at least local. On the weekends, because of staffing, they would go to the network and the network news would suffice, and that was it. Well, they had the weekend news, 15 minutes worth, with Tom Jarrell, who was the anchor back then on ABC.
I remember
They were
that.
deciding to do a local version. So they had one of their reporters anchor, and they had their sports reporter anchor on the weekends, but they had no weather person. So my news director at the time was a gentleman who was one of the writing staff of the Smothers Brothers comedy show from the 60s. And his brother was the lead anchor. And let's just say he liked snow on a little piece of glass. You get it.
Right.
So out of his mind and without him thinking about it, he said, well, just put this 17-year-old kid on there. So they worked with me to get me up to doing it. But, St. Louis is a big market and they expect a certain amount of proficiency. So people were like, get this guy off the air. He doesn't know what he's doing, blah, blah, blah. At 17, I thought I was very good and I was very, very bad. And so they took me off. They sent me to a talent coach and they put me back on about 7 months later. And so I've worked KTVI in St. Louis, KPLR in St. Louis, KMBC in Kansas City. So
that's crazy.
I've been here 35 years.
That's just crazy.
35 years. I know, right?
I mean, that's kind of unusual in television news these days.
Oh, it is. But what it is about broadcasting especially is once you buy into one of us, especially weather people, we stick around for a while. Sportscasters come and go and anchors come and go.
Right.
But the news people, at least of the three different tiers, the meteorologist is around for a while. I mean,
that's true.
Mike Thompson, before he just retired, been here for years. Gary Lezak has been here for a while. Gary Amble's been here for a while. Jim Morey's been here for a while. I've been here for a while. So, I mean, it's unheard of. And people, when they start to do the math saying, I've been here for 35 years, they say, what, did you start when you were 6? Well, not quite.
Yeah, you're pretty young when you started, though. That's pretty unusual to get a gig at 17.
I was 17 in St. Louis. I got here, and people ask, what year I started. I started the week after the victory parade for the Royals, the first go round in '85.
Wow.
So I started November 5th or 6th of 1985. And I was going to start grad school. So I was in my low 20s when I first got here. There you go. And we're recording this in late November, early December. And my birthday is December 8th. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be 40 with a few years experience.
What are some changes that you've seen? Like, I mean, just even not just in Kansas City, but like things that you've seen in the last 30 years, 35 years. That's, I guess, just as a constant on the television in people's homes every night.
Well, probably in the old days when I first got on television, you'd have to have a human remote control. Get up and change the channel, son, as opposed to a remote.
Right.
So it was one extra step to get rid of me that way. With the advent of cable, at one time when I first got into the business, or at least got here in Kansas City, there were only 4 or 5 choices. Think about Labor Day weekend. The Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon was huge because you only had 4 choices. The other 3 networks, including PBS, but now you've got ESPN 1 and 2 and Showtime and Hulu and all these other things that can take away from watching Charo at 1:15 in the morning on the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon. So, I mean, a lot's changed in that regard. As far as weather is concerned, I mean, we used to have magnets on one map.
Yeah.
And now, the first computer graphics system I remember working on only had 8 colors. Ooh. It was a Commodore 64 that they converted into a weather graphics system. And then I moved to an Apple, which only had 16 colors. And now, we stand there in front of moving and 3D, and it's just amazing in that regard. And of course, I'd say the technology's changed too, in that people's expectations. In other words, when I first got into broadcasting, if I said it was going to rain and it rained, you say, oh, he's right. But now you guys ask questions like, okay, how much? And what time is it going to start? What time is it going to stop?
All right, what's the percentage?
And will it impact my daughter's soccer game?
Right.
115th and null.
Right.
So you want it down to
your
specific.
street, right?
Draw the path of the storm.
Yeah, exactly. And the science has not evolved that well, honestly. When it comes to tracking a tornado, yes, we can do that. But to say 8 days from now that at 105th in state line between 215 and 245, you'll use your integrated windshield wipers. But people want that. People expect that. And, you know, the proverbial, I wish I could have a job where I could be wrong half the time and still get it. I love hearing that one. And people just don't give us enough credit because we're right more than people give us credit for. Because you don't remember all the times we were right. You just remember, remember last 4th of July when blah, 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 blah. Well, if you got to go all the way back to 2 or 3 years ago for 4th of July to find the last time that you remember that I missed it like big time, then what does that say about all those other times in between? So
anyway, there used to be, wasn't there?
That's why my therapist is on.
Wasn't there at one point
that's why my therapist is on speed dial.
the Busby guarantee at one point? Didn't you have a little graphic for a while? Yep.
And we did that for a lot of years. And new bosses came in and thought it was kind of hokey, but I thought it was great because it still emphasized the fact that I am right and I am closer than people give me credit for. And so I use the tongue-in-cheek thing because people think we're throwing darts. So I thought of a graphic that people can relate to. And it was funny because what we would do is if I was right, nothing. If I was wrong, we'd give somebody $99 because we were Channel 9, $99. Right. Well, we decided, I talked my boss into it at one time to do a progressive. In that for every day I'm right, add just not 99, but for easy math. No, I think we did 99. For every day I'm right, put $99 in a kitty. And then when I am wrong, draw the name and that person wins whatever the kitty's up to.
Wow.
No, I take that back. I think it was 90 a day because the prize was $1,980. And we were doing it for a whole month, ratings.
Right.
And, you know, Monday through Friday, 4 times a week, that was 20 opportunities. So 20 times the 90 would get you up to that figure. And for some odd reason, the front moved through quicker and I missed it by 8 degrees. And so that person got a check for $1,980. And my boss thought I did it on purpose, and I didn't. But the thing that happened was it was such a groundswell of talk. And Dick Wilson on Oldies 95 and Randy Miller on Q104 and all these morning disc jockeys were talking about it.
Right.
That's free advertising. That's free
absolutely.
publicity. And so they would have me on their morning show and say, hey, you're up to so-and-so. You've got it 14 days in a row. And you can't buy, you know, that sort of advertising or that sort of publicity much anymore. So I'd love to bring it back. And who knows, maybe we can, you know. But it was fun to do. I'm surprised you remember that, Nick. Thank you.
There are 2 things that I remember. That and the pendulum.
Ah, yes. I still talk about the pendulum.
The pendulum of how our weather changes here all the time.
Yeah.
There was a graphic of it swinging through the screen.
Yeah. In other words, especially like this time of year. Remember not too long ago when we recorded this, it was like 70 degrees. And then about 2 or 3 mornings ago, it's down to 24.
Right.
Well, if the normal high temperature is 45 and the normal low is 25, if we're going to be in the 70s, that means we're going to have to swing back the other direction just to make the math work out.
Right.
Which is why I know in 5 or 6 days, we're probably going to be back into the 20s. That's what it is. It's just a simple way to tell people that we get some huge temperature swings in this part of the country. And the atmosphere is kind of elastic. If you see a balloon and you push down on one end of the balloon, the other end of the balloon goes up. And that's the same thing with weather. If the West Coast is hot, we're going to be cool.
Right.
If the West Coast is cool, we're going to be hot because there's only so much weather to go around the planet. And so the other analogy I use is sometimes the swings are huge, like Nick was talking about. Then all of a sudden they just kind of get closer and closer to one another. Have you ever seen a coin that you put on the hubcap when it goes woo, 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 then it speeds up until finally. Same thing with the weather. It can go real wild at first, and then all of a sudden the changes get closer and closer to one another as that hubcap finally just settles onto the ground. And the other thing I used to do with the Guaranteed Forecast, we played Sir Thomas Dolby's Science.
That's right.
That's pretty good.
Yes.
One of the things we do on this podcast, you know, much like you, Nick is not well versed in beer, really, but he knows enough to be dangerous. But every show, as I've told you, we have mystery beer. So it's time for Nick's first mystery beer.
So what do we got? Break out the stolen bag.
So this bag is legendary. It's from some golf course in Kansas City. We don't know which one.
Okay.
But it was procured by a buddy of mine. We shout out to Tony Medina.
Circa 1991.
Yeah, here's your first mystery.
What do we got here?
We keep it classy with the brown paper bag. We were told by our guest last week, Melissa in England. She said, "No, that's not classy." So, but we still do it.
They don't do the bag, she said.
We don't do the bags. That's an American thing.
All right, what do we got here?
Usually with muscatel.
Oh gosh, if you're drinking that,
Or Mad Dog.
that's more like it.
Whoa.
We got
You
the
know, hold on. I got to interrupt you guys
okay.
because I'm talking to you on my smartphone here, and it's a small picture.
Uh-huh.
I thought you guys were in two separate rooms, but when I saw you reach across, I'm like, "We're in the same room."
So we are coming at you from our studio at Bridge Space in Lee Summit. This is the old post office vault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That when a friend of ours bought and redeveloped into a co-working space, he turned the vault into a podcast studio that I use.
Nice.
So we are locked in a vault.
Well, locked is loosely. Yeah.
You know.
We got there, Nick.
Prairie Artisan Ales. This is a slush sour ale with strawberry, raspberry, lemon, and lime. Junior, is that enough?
That's something you would probably like, Brian.
Yeah, that's close to my Busby Fujita scale ale.
Yes, the 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Um,
What? And actually, I don't know if Tony told you he added coconut, so there were 4.
yeah, I didn't have that one. I poured it and it blew. So
Yeah, it wasn't canned, obviously.
Yeah, it was
because you have to
one
go through
day.
a rigmarole.
That was
But on Sunday, it was quite good. What were the fruits on this one again, please?
you're spilling it there, buddy.
strawberry, raspberry, lemon, and lime.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, hold on.
One of our favorite listeners, Junior. Shout out to Junior.
Junior.
We have to tell him what we drink so he knows. Oh, we're getting the tour.
I'm just
Junior, I'm
going-
drinking Retro Brew from Second Shift out of St. Louis, by the way.
So no, there they are.
Oh, you still have some.
Nice.
You got a stockpile.
That's the fanciest Wind Shift label I've seen.
label. Yeah, that's nice.
How many of
Really
those
good.
have you gotten and given away?
Oh my gosh, about 5 or 6 different 6-packs.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I still have my original Comet Tsunami, which was good too.
Shout out to Tony.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yes. Did you notice there was nothing else in the refrigerator?
Besides beer.
Exactly. Well, there's some leftovers there, from Turkey Day, so that should tell people when.
That's pretty
Let's
tasty,
get
Nick.
on this.
That's pretty tasty. I think
Yeah.
you would probably like this, Brian. I question
That's
for you,
really
Brian.
good.
Yeah.
The whole what's your I kind of want to jump to your music thing, but we can talk beer first. What was your introduction to beer? Do you remember what your first beer was when you were growing up?
Oh my God. My first beer. Let me think now. I'll tell you what it was. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and Dad was having a beer, and I think Dad wanted to make sure that I would not like beer. So it wasn't Pepsi Blue Ribbon. It was Carling Black Label.
Oh, Carling, old school.
Yeah.
I think that's British too. I think it's British.
Yeah. And he said, "You want to taste it, son?" I'm like, "Sure, Dad." You know.
How
He
old were
just
you?
smiled like,
How old were you think?
I was probably about 10.
So
About
when
10.
you became legal drinking age, did you drink beer at all, or?
Yeah, I did. This is in St. Louis, so it's Anheuser-Busch. I mean,
Right.
come on.
Yeah,
It was
I guess.
Michelob. It was
Okay.
Michelob.
Okay, that's not. I mean,
Um,
I'd say that before they called it craft. That was probably craft because that was kind of that was premium beer.
Right.
yeah,
Remember,
yeah,
it had the foil
I mean,
on it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I did Bud, and before Bud Light came out, I did Budweiser, but for some reason, I like Michelob better. And,
I'm the same way. I grew up drinking a lot of Bud in high school. Then Michelob came out, and it was way more fancy. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You mean in high school you
then-
thought about drinking Michelob?
No, I did. Well, you have to understand when I was in high school, I think it went from 18 to 21 at my senior year in high school.
Mhm.
So you could still kind of, I was tall and had a deep voice. At 16, I could pass for 18 and buy beer. So
There you go. There you
I mean,
go.
I'm 6'2", and I was 6'2" back then in 10th grade. So
That helps.
worked out pretty well.
Then
So-
I would say when I was moving here, one of the first places, Channel 9 was down in the Lyric Theater building. You knew
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
And now they're converting that into a, was it YMCA going downtown? And the Quaff
Oh yeah.
was on. Oh yeah, hello. And so my first beer at the Quaff, my regular beer at the Quaff was Corona with a lime.
Okay.
And maybe that's why I decided to go with, like the citrus stuff in my
Right.
Fiji to Scale Ale. But no, I'm more of a mixed drink guy or a wine guy.
Okay.
Because one of my mentors is Spencer Christian, who used to be on Good Morning America. And if you remember back in 1998, I was one of the finalists for that job to be the network meteorologist on GMA. And Spencer was a sommelier. I mean, the man knows so much about wine. And so when he's your mentor, it's like, okay, I'll learn. And so actually the room I'm talking to you from is kind of like my wine tasting, which is off my kitchen. See, that's the kitchen, which is where the refrigerator was. But see, this is more my wine tasting room.
Gotcha.
And I like reds more so than whites. So Syrah and Petit Syrahs are like my favorite.
Same here. Same here.
But then I got into vodka. And when they started doing flavored vodkas, my go-to was Stoli Vanilla and Coke.
Sounds good.
And
I had
the
that
first, the first Stoli Vanilla and Coke, you have your beverage, you're sitting there talking to your friends, and you're intelligent, talking about, well, I think that we're probably going to see a good chance of rain and thunderstorms tomorrow. Second one, you're going, this is going to be pretty good. But the third one, you're like, I was going to tell you for the show that I actually got paid to burp on command. And it's not really a burp. It's an imitation of a burp. Does that make sense?
No.
So I'm not really I'm not inhaling or trapped air. I'm actually just imitating the sound of a burp. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's one of my claim to fame. So when people think I'm burp, I'm not. I'm not really burping. I'm just imitating the sound of a burp.
You're like a burp performer.
Yeah. Pretty amazing
How do you land that gig? When you're talking to your agent and you're talking about your skill set, how does that conversation come up?
He's like, Brian, I've got this great opportunity for you.
I forgot how it came through. And it wasn't through Pam, my agent for television. It was through a voice agent that I had locally in St. Louis. And the other one was for a stuffed animal. They wanted a bark of a dog. Okay. But not just a roof or a bark.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
If the weather thing doesn't work out, I'm telling you, man.
There you go. But what I think that is because of music. And I tell people that the voice is God's first instrument.
Right.
Even before the drum and anything else, it's the it's the voice. And if you listen to any voice, you can tell the register, Like if you're going to do Goofy, you can't do Goofy real high.
Right.
Of course. He's down here. Oh, Mickey's quite high, So you have to know the register. So I guess when I was listening to a burp, it's lower.
Right.
And it's more guttural. And, for example, all right, let me dissect. I did Cartman before. Now, you guys are probably too young to remember the show Fantasy Island.
Oh, come on, man. Of course. The plane.
Yes, exactly. Hervé Villechaize was one of the first voices I learned to do, which is,
yes, boss, the plane. Yes, definitely, boss. And if you listen very carefully to Hervé Villechaize
and take out the French accent and take out the lisp,
to get rid of the French accent and you get rid of the lisp, you got Cartman. Eric Cartman is the same voice as Hervé Villechaize.
Without the lisp and the French accent.
That's hilarious. Everybody when we were kids wanted to imitate that voice, but I think you're the first one I know who can do it.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean,
Thank you.
And it was a great show. Trust me, I'm older than Nick is, but yeah, I definitely remember that show.
I'm still young. I'm going to claim it.
Ricardo Montalban with the Corinthian leather.
The leather that wasn't leather.
Right. What's the name of the car was the Cordoba.
Yeah. The Chrysler Cordoba with the Corinthian leather.
Yes, I remember that well.
So going back to beer, let's talk about
Sure.
For those who don't know, Bryan did some beers at Wind Shift, one of the places I work. How did that come about? How did you discover Wind Shift? Let's start with that.
Okay.
You know, it's varying stories. I've told several stories, but I want to hear. I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
You might want to ask him later what stories he's telling about you.
Exactly. So, well, after Bryan was at the Greyhound bus terminal in the gutter
After too many
with a paper bag of Muscatel
talking like Cartman
and burping on command, but those are real. No, what it was is a couple of coworker friends of mine behind the scenes live out Eastern Jackson County. And one of the guys is a guy by the name of Tony Simsack. And Tony's one of those Renaissance guys, even more so than me, but in a different arena. You know, I think I'm versed in the arts and music and that sort of thing, but he has his own pizza oven out in back, you know, one of those brick ovens. Yeah. He likes his wine and he likes his beer, and he is good at all three. And he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys also who, you know, if you have a conversation with Tony, you're going to feel real stupid because, you know, certain words just don't come when I'm trying to describe cheese. But he'll come across, well, it's more obsequious than when you have the, it's like, what? So you stare at him like, what? Long and short of it is he was telling me about this place in Eastern Jackson County, close to where we both live, called Wind Shift. And he brought in a couple of beers that were canned. And I think the Tsunami was one of them, honestly. So it's really recent. And again, I'm not a beer guy, but I was like, okay, I'll try it. And I remember going and finding out what the place was and sitting down there. And I like smaller places, you know, being a public figure. I'm flattered when people know me, which is great. But you know, there are just times I want to sit, talk, decompress.
Right.
And the vibe at Wind Shift is so mellow, so chill. And so I remember going in there and being just intrigued by okra and corn in a beer.
as a lot of people were with that one.
Oh yeah. What? So I was there, and I think you weren't bartending the first night I was in there. But I thought it was a cool vibe. And then the name just intrigued me. And then I found out Lynn, Tony's wife, used to work for the National Weather Service, which is why all the beers, or most of the beers, have a weather connotation to it. Right. And so it just got to talking, and I said, well, is it something that I could try to do? You know, and he said, sure. The other thing I liked was the fact that when you do the tastings, they choose a charity. They choose a charity, and one that was near and dear to my heart recently. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to lie and say, oh, I've known it for a while. Dayton Moore, GM of the Royals, has this charity called See You in the Major Leagues, and it is a charity designed for mentoring to get the kids on the hook with baseball, but then bring in architects and lawyers and doctors and other folks to get these kids thinking about other career choices. And there was a challenge going on Twitter where they would ask people, okay, who are your mentors? Who got you involved? Right. And Lynn Jennings, our sports director, challenged me and a couple other folks at Channel 9 to do it. And this was right in the shadows of my mentor, Dick Goddard, passing. And so I thought, okay, well, this is a charity I'd never heard of. It's not one of those big ones that you see a lot of publicity on. Right. And so I said, well, if I'm going to do the beer and we're going to name it with my name, then let me use my name to draw people in so this charity gets some love. And it was a good fit. And I'm glad I did it.
So what was that like? Because, you know, obviously Tony's a great guy and he wanted you to drive the car. How did how did the flavors come about? How did you and Tony come to that? Because, you know, I'm talking to him. He's like, yeah, I'm going to make him do all the work.
Oh, he did too. He did. I wasn't prepared for that. I pulled up in my limo and the entourage came out first. And
your personal photographer.
Yeah, I was just a little shocked that I would actually have to get my nails dirty and work. But no, the flavor profile, again, since I'm not a beer guy necessarily, I didn't know what was off limits and what was not on limits or vice versa. But then I think, well, if you've got okra and corn, then maybe I'm good.
There's nothing is out of the.
I guess not. So it's like, pelican snot and arugula. Okay, sure.
I feel like COVID world and all of the local brewers have just taught us there are no rules anymore.
I guess so.
I mean, well, Tony to teach you to that for sure.
I was thinking mimosas, champagne, orange juice. But I also like pineapple orange juice. And I think that everybody's had at least Del Monte or some sort of pineapple orange.
Right.
So then I thought from my mixed drinks, grenadine, which is a cherry derivative. So when I was trying to think of a third fruit on top of it, I said, well, let's put cherry on it. And Tony told me in retrospect that he never thought about putting cherry in a beer at all. And so I asked him point blank, so were you being polite when I came up with these three? Oh, sure, man, that's a great idea. Holy, how am I going to pull this off? But, but you were there that night, and it looks like the one that was actually flying off the shelf more so when people were doing the mini flight was the one with the cherry on top. Yeah,
they all turned out very well. How about that brew day? You came in, and I was like, Brian, you probably should not wear your well, you had some Vans on or something. I was like, you probably need some better shoes than that.
And I had them in the car. Okay, I got my boots.
What was that like for you? Because a lot of people have never experienced that brew day of how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Well, I didn't know. I knew that grain had to be used for something. Had no idea that I was actually going to open up the bags, put it in the mill. And then funny, you made me taste it raw out of the bag. And I'm like, no, this is not like grape nuts. This is not even like barley. I have no idea what this is. But to go through the process of knowing what it is, it was an eye-opener. I have a much better appreciation for it.
Right.
But it's like, I'm not going to go to a slaughterhouse and see how the steak is prepared. I don't think I want to necessarily. But it was good to go through that to understand that, okay, that's what's involved with beer. So going through putting the grain in the mill, having it come out of the husk, not the husk, what do you call it? The shells? Or?
Yeah, husk is fine, sure.
Okay, there you go. And then actually cooking it and stirring it and then getting rid of the mead.
Oh,
the mixture rather.
Yeah.
I forget what you guys call it.
Wort.
Okay, and then that's used to make dog biscuits.
Oh, you're talking about the spent grain. Yeah.
So that was good. I felt like I was like one of the guys who work on the underbelly of Titanic in the boiler room,
shoveling coal into the
shoveling. But
this sounds like an all-day affair.
It was an all-day affair.
It was, and actually, a good friend of mine, Jason Richards, shot the whole process. And I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, documenting what it was like and a little bit of the tasting that night that went for the charity. And then just a debrief that I did with Tony afterward just to talk about it. But and then you guys even made me go and put it in cans. And I never saw the process for canning it.
Yeah. So we wanted to give you the full experience of working at the brewery. So he did all that. He canned, he poured.
Do you want to do it again? That's the big question.
No. Yeah, I do. I really do. I do. And Tony have already talked about the next flight we want to do, because I guess they've got the little homemade things where you can hold 5 different beers.
Right.
So we only had 3. And I guess if you do the coconut, we had 4. But I want to do 5. And, December 1st ends hurricane season. And I'm the meteorologist in Kansas City with cats, not dogs. But I will never put my cats on TV because we never get anything done. Actually, you probably caught me looking down every once in a while. There's one who likes to just be around. And he's like, what are you doing? Who are you talking to? What's going on? But when we're talking about hurricanes, we talk about category 1, category 2, category 3 storms. But, the hip meteorologist will shorten that to Cat 4, Cat 1, Cat 2. So I want to do a mini flight of my 5 cats, some who are deceased and some that are still alive, and start with pond water for Cat 1, then go to turpentine for Cat 5. So that the progression goes from 1 to 5. And I hope to name them after 5 of my cats. Cat 1 is like named after Tiger, and cat 2 is named after Ariel, and it's going all the way up.
That's fun.
And I think that that'd be kind of fun. And the charity I would choose is one that's called the Help Humane Society. They're in Belton, and they are a true no-kill, all-cat shelter.
Huh.
And, I'm a firm believer that cats don't get the sort of respect they need. People think that cats are aloof. No, they aren't. Cats do have a personality. My cats will follow me from room to room, and they're just like dogs, and they're very affectionate. But, Wayside Waifs and Help Humane don't have the same sort of publicity. Everybody knows Wayside Waifs. They have enough going to them. Nothing against them. Actually, I got one of my cats from Wayside Waifs, but I've gotten 3 of my cats from Help Humane. And so I'd like to just get them some sort of money so that they can keep their doors open. So I don't know when I can do that with Tony, but yes, I do want to go through that process again. It was kind of fun. And if I can lend my name out to help bring money in for a charity, I'll do it.
I feel like that's something you've been good at throughout your career here in Kansas City, that you've put your name with a lot of different local charities throughout the metro area. I know you've done a lot of work with one I'm familiar with, the Rainbow Center there in Blue Springs.
Right. I look at it this way. I'm an invited guest in your house, and I'm not ashamed to say the other 3 that I compete against. There are people who are probably Gary Amble fans who are not Bryan Busby fans, or Gary Lezak fans and not Buzz, or Joe Loria fans and not me. So if you make a conscious effort to say that this is the guy I'm going to watch, and this is the guy I believe in, and this is the guy I trust, and he's an invited guest in my house, then the least I can do is try to make this whole place look a lot better. Early on, I was asked to do the Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon when I first got here. I did the MS 150 all the years that Channel 9 had it, mainly because my grandmother, my 3rd parent, I was blessed to have mom and dad and grandma, who was mom's mom, who lived with us. And she had multiple sclerosis. And I saw how it went from little pain to walking with a cane, to walking with 2 canes, to walking with a walker, to walking with 2 braces. You get the idea.
Right.
And I think it's true with anything. If somebody comes up to you in the office and says, "Hey, Bill, I'm going to run this marathon for X," because Bill asked you to, you're probably going to sign your name to it. Or if you have somebody in your family who is affected by X, you're going to be involved with it. So for me to lend the name to say, give these folks some love. So yeah, whether it's the arts, to keep the arts going in the schools and elsewhere, that's one. The Emma Society, anything for cats and all animals for that matter. United Negro College Fund. I mean, just so many. So I try to be careful though, and I'll tell you why, Nick, because I don't want to be like, okay, what's Busby asking for now? I don't want to hurt my credibility with those organizations and say, okay, here he has his handout yet again. So I try to space them out, and I try not to be involved with more than too many at a time, so that all of my effectiveness is diluted. Because Jerry Lewis, when he was alive, only did one charity, and he did it well. As opposed to, well, now this week I'm doing cerebral palsy, and next week I'm going to, no, he did muscular dystrophy, and that was the only one he did.
Right.
So the same thing, but I appreciate you understanding that I try to lend my name out there. And yeah, the Rainbow Center is fun. That trivia night, we just did one, and this is the first year we had to do it virtually.
Right. Yeah.
Because we couldn't have people come in, so that was kind of fun. It was interesting to do, but it was more like what I'm at home doing. Doing it in front of a live audience. When you hear a joke bomb, you hear the groan.
Right.
When you're in the studio and there's nobody in there, you think you're killing it. And, so that way you just keep going. It's like, yeah, I'm really hot. This is great. And so doing the virtual trivia night took that sort of thought out of my head that, okay, yeah, this is kind of fun. And it's still for a good cause. And, Lord only knows when we're going to get back to the normal, but I can hardly wait because, I've missed that interaction, that bond with folks.
Well,
I'm gonna thank you for that one in particular. My family's big in Rainbow Center. My sister's been a part of that since '85 and still goes to their adult program. So
wow, very cool.
So we thank you for me just for that participation with that one. But that's been going a long time. I think that's the first trivia event thing I ever knew about.
Oh, really?
As a teen, we want to put really? They
Wow.
do this as a contest.
Did you play?
Yeah, we've done it. Yeah, we've done it several years.
What's your team name?
I honestly don't remember.
That's a
Good team
dumb
name.
name for a team.
Yeah, that's what that's.
Actually, that'd be a great
Look,
name.
it's
for
whatever my mother wrote down on the sheet of paper is what we did.
I think a team, if you're going to do that, if it was I honestly don't know, would be a great name for a team.
I'm going to text my mother now, and like the next time we do it.
Okay, there you go.
Next mystery beer. There you go. So Brian, that beer was quite the hit. What'd you think, man? Because the name is lent to it, but also it was pretty tasty beer. What'd you think of all the response?
I was shocked.
Were you?
I was shocked. Because again, I don't know enough about beers. I don't know what a Berliner sour. I mean, I can sound like I've heard some words like Pilsner. Ooh. So I know enough vocabulary. Like some people probably know a few meteorological words to sound intelligent, but people who are in the industry can go, poser. Right. So I was surprised. I was surprised how many people came out because it was Halloween night. We did it.
Right.
And I knew a lot of folks would probably have their kids, although, again, it was a pandemic and there wasn't that much trick-or-treating door to door to door. I still thought there would be some resistance to coming out, being with family or being with the kids. But a lot of folks got babysitters and still came out during the course of the evening. So it was like some constant turnover. But I was actually, honestly, I was not impressed. I was just shocked that people would like it. And the thing that shocked me more than anything was in front of me, or even without me being in the room, because I didn't realize you guys had canned some. I just thought they were just going to be pouring at the bar. But there were people taking 6-packs and 2-packs home. I'm like, really? Okay. And they weren't doing it out of being polite. They actually enjoyed the taste of it. So I mean,
I thought it worked out well. I liked them because if for somebody who didn't like a sour, that would be a gateway. Because they weren't super like.
Who would say they don't like sours? I don't understand.
This guy, but when we started this podcast, he did not like sours. Now I've got him hooked. So
episode 1, I don't like sours. Yeah. Episode 2, bring them on.
What was your beer of choice then?
Most anything Boulevard. I liked the Samuel Smith oatmeal stout. Stout was really what I went to, but I'm a bourbon and rum guy.
He's a liquor guy. So
I like bourbon. I like rum. Pretty sure if you tested my wife and I's blood, there would be a lot of rum in there.
Okay, I get it.
What you got?
Well, actually, that's one of the beer I should mention that was one of my expansions was J.W. Dundee Honey Wheat, or Honey Brown rather.
Yeah, that's a good beer.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I don't know if you can still get it. I haven't seen it in a long time.
I haven't had that one in years, but I'm with you. Probably back in, my first in Kansas City in the 90s, I used to drink that one, the Honey Brown.
I just never really paid that much attention to beer. I mean, I liked beer, but whatever. I mean, like college, right? Whatever was cheap.
Right.
I mean,
PBR.
Keystone Light for a suitcase for $6.
I mean, Coors Light. Coors. We got there, bud.
Hazeus Corpus, a hazy India Pale Ale from Legal Draft in Arlington,
Texas.
Beer.
Yep. Legal Draft. That's a cool little. Yeah, do it. It's a cool little brewery. All their tap handles are gavels, and all their beer names have legal jargon. Like that one's Hazeus Corpus. Get it? Hazy.
Where's the spoon?
Nothing kills like an attorney joke.
Thanks, sir. Actually, it's one of the few. It's Latino owned, which is one of the few, minority owned breweries in Texas that I know of. So I definitely had to go pay them a visit. But it's a good brewery, and they do some good beers.
Well, I know I'm the guest, and you guys are both drinking right now, so I get to play interviewee right now for just the next few minutes. What's the percentage of minority owned in this industry?
I think it's
not good.
Yeah, I think that's
my answer.
If you go, all minorities, it's probably less than 3% out of the 6,000. In the States.
Is that somebody in the background? Who's that?
That is the owner of Brick Space, the building we're in.
Ben Rayo. Yeah. Gotcha. So no, there's not very many. Kansas City's different where there's there's 2 female-owned breweries, and I think there's 4 female brewers in Kansas City.
Well, and we just had our first
Yeah, we have our first
woman of
black.
color.
She's an assistant brewer at Torn Label over there off of 18th in the Crossroads. So she's the first black assistant brewer, which has never happened in Kansas City. She was on a few weeks ago, but she was a shout out to Des Jones. She's a very good home brewer. She was one of those brewers that you'd go to festivals and you'd go look for her because she always would come with some really weird shit, but it would be like tasty. I would like, yeah, you need to find her.
And like you, an incredible musician as well.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty about this podcast. We find out so many things about. I'm like, I had no idea she was a musician.
Yeah.
Plays like 6 instruments. I was like, wow.
And then just sees one. I want to pick that one up and teach myself.
Yeah, that's what she taught herself everything. I'm like, okay. So
Nice.
you know, we found that people who are either cooks or musicians they're pretty good brewers. So you might be doing some stuff at home. You never know. You should be making your own wine if you're a wine guy. You ever made your own wine?
With the time, that's the biggest thing with me is time. Because,
bro, that's easier than beer because basically you spend like the hour prepping it and then you leave it until you bottle it. It's pretty simple.
Okay, that'll work. Man.
But you can spend $100 on a kit, and it's probably 45 bottles of wine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the yield is pretty good. So
think about that.
And they have the Syrahs and all the styles,
the different blends. Okay.
Yeah, that you can do from home.
But maybe I don't know the process there because the only thing I can think of is when I see the "I Love Lucy" where she's stepping on the grapes and her bare feet.
You don't want that to be a segment on the news.
Well, today the forecast is looking pretty good. I was like, no, definitely not.
So how about obviously you've done some big things musically. How'd you get into music? Was that something that your parents pushed you towards, or?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. They were parents. They push you to sports. They push you to. They want to push you to anything, whatever the kid wanted to do. I mean, that's pretty much their mantra. So the first instrument that I was exposed to, they bought my brother and myself. My brother's 5 years older than me, and they brought us a piano. So my first instrument to know is piano, and that's a good one to start with. Because, I mean, if you know keyboard, then you can go to guitar, you can go to sax, you can go to the strings, you can go to percussion. Makes sense to start with piano. But in school band, it's usually the school orchestra teacher who plays the piano to fill in all the instruments that aren't played. Like if there are 4 trumpets and no trombones, he'll play the trombone part on the piano just so it fills out. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't play piano in school band. So I had to go to an instrument. And I wanted to play clarinet. But all the clarinets had already been taken out, so I had to go to trumpet. But then my forward-thinking parents decided to put braces on my teeth. It is very difficult to keep that mouthpiece up against your lips and not turning the inside of your lips into Swiss cheese.
Right.
So, because of my piano background, I went to the percussion section because you don't have to use your mouth, you use your hands, which makes perfect sense. And, I played the mallet stuff like xylophone, glockenspiel, that kind of stuff. And one piece of music had timpani/bells. And it was the fireworks music by Handel as an arrangement. And I had no idea what timpani was. So I asked the band director, Mr. Morse, who I still keep in touch with on Facebook, Mr. Morse, what's timpani? And he said, you see those things over in the corner under those brown covers? And I'm like, yes. Those are called timpani. Those are kettle drums. What's a kettle drum? And so he gave me this book and to take home and read. And I've got the horrible curse for those who are musicians, this thing called perfect pitch. You guys know perfect pitch by any chance?
It's things I am jealous of.
Okay. The best way to describe perfect pitch this happened by accident. My piano teacher was playing something, and I started playing when the pianos face each other. So she's playing something, I couldn't see her hands, and I started playing it by ear. And so she hit a note, and I hit the same note. Perfect pitch is I can hear and identify a tone by just hearing it. And I know that sounds simplistic, but it's not really that simplistic. And it's a curse because you don't want perfect pitch when you hear a junior high choir singing Silent Night. because they don't stay in tune. They start with sleep in heavenly peace. They don't quite get as high as they need to, They swoop up there and they just kind of miss it. So with perfect pitch, and because timpani is tuned, you know that, right? Timpani are tuned. So that's why you always see the timpanist putting his ear down to the drum to make sure that he's going to be in tune with the rest of the orchestra when he comes back or he or she enters again. So when the braces came off the teeth, I just stayed in the percussion section. And so I'm blessed to be able to play in a couple of professional orchestras in and around Kansas City, in addition to the day job. So I get to do both, which is kind of fun.
So where have you played? Tell us what you've done.
Ooh, well, if we're talking playing, every year before the symphony took it over, there was a performance of Handel's Messiah, the whole thing, all 2.5, 3 hours worth.
Mm-hmm.
People know the Hallelujah chorus, but there are 3 parts to that. So there's an Easter part and a Christmas part. I mean, it's a long work. Not much for timpani, but they would hire out an orchestra, and that would be done at the RODS Auditorium, now known as the Community of Christ Auditorium in Independence. I played that. I conducted an orchestra in Carnegie Hall, which is kind of fun.
Wow, cool.
Gosh, the Kaufman Center is such an amazing place to play. It is an amazing place acoustically. I don't know if you've gone to see something at the Kaufman, or if you've been blessed to be on stage at the Kaufman. I was asked to be one of the 3 or 4 MCs the night of the gala. And what they did is they got Charlie Parker's saxophone, the plastic saxophone that's on display at the Jazz Museum.
Mm-hmm.
They got it out of the case and gave it to Dr. Watson, Bobby Watson, who's the professor of woodwinds at UMKC. And he played that horn with the UMKC Jazz Orchestra. And they wanted me to come out there and introduce. I was one of, like I said, 4 hosts. And backstage was Isaac Perlman. Oh my gosh, this kind of cool. Adana Crawl. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is
wow.
Cool. Anyway, So I go out on stage, and the voice of God behind stage, please welcome to the stage, Bryan Busby. People are clapping, but the acoustics are so good in that hall. Not only is it good from the stage to the audience, it's equally as good from the audience to stage. So here I am standing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And I can see in the first 2 or 3 rows these ladies saying, "He's not short and fat at all." As plain as day, I hear this. And for a split second, I stopped because I'm like listening to their conversation about my weight. I was like, Brian, keep talking, But it is a phenomenal place to play. The acoustics are incredible, and it's been fun.
So you still get to play much? Are you playing?
Well, with COVID, no. But the Keenor Philharmonic I play with, and that's the artist in residence out of the Jewish Community Center, professional orchestra. I play with the Liberty Symphony, which is another gig up in Liberty. And I play with the Kansas City Civic Orchestra, which usually plays out at the Atonement Lutheran Church out in Overland Park off Metcalf. And those are the 3 that keep me busy. And quite frankly, that's enough for my hobby. So that's why I don't know if I could fit in winemaking or even beer.
Well, the winemaking's passive. You could do it. Set it and forget it.
I like that.
It seems like you like to be busy.
Yeah, I do. I get bored easy. So, I mean, it's not only that, but, being a meteorologist, it's kind of tough not to be curious about how things are much bigger than you are, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I think people think that those of us on TV, and I can't speak about everybody on television, but this guy on television, it's a job. I love what I do. I'm flattered that I do what I do, but I know I'm a human being. That makes any sense. And you put the pants on one leg at a time. I did not hang the moon and the stars. I was joking, and I think people could tell I was joking about the limousine that dropped me off at Wind Shift. It was an entourage of 5 vehicles, but not just limousine. But so it's tough to be an atheist and a meteorologist because you're just in awe of this stuff. You just feel insignificant,
right?
And you just know that you don't have all the answers. One thing I will admit, when I'm wrong about a forecast, I'm not going to sweep it under the rug. I'll say, hey, I blew it.
Wrong.
Because who else is expected to be 100% right with everything they do? if people were 100% accurate with everything they do, why in God's name do we have the backspace on the keyboard?
Fair.
So
That's
if
fair.
you use it, why the hell don't you think I need it? You know? Now, again, if you're arrogant and pompous and conceited, you think, well, I don't need that. But I'm not. I'm human. And I tell people it's not that I'm a failure at being a meteorologist. I'm just human like the people I serve. And that's the other thing. I view this as a service. I try not to use, although sometimes the folks who write our commercials want me to say my forecast.
Right.
And I say your forecast. And they say, no, Brian, that's the word mine. I say, no, it's your forecast. And the reason I say that is if I'm a chef and I have this great seafood tortellini recipe,
Right.
it's my recipe, but it's your meal.
Right.
So I'm preparing the forecast for you, like you were saying, making the beer for you. So it's my recipe, but it is for your benefit.
For you, right.
So that's why you'll hear me on TV say, here's your forecast. And I finally got those folks who write those commercials to say, okay, well, that makes sense. But, you know,
Did you ever when you were younger, you got on TV, did you ever have the big head?
Oh,
Ever?
God, yeah. Oh, sure. Absolutely. And if you remember me at 17, freshman in college, don't even have the degree yet, and I'm already in market number 12,
Yeah.
but sucking on TV.
But you were still on TV, damn
You
it.
were on
You couldn't
TV.
tell that to the 17-year-old Bryan Busby. No, that was great. Until, again, you read the call sheet and you say, get this guy off the air. So, yeah, sure. And there'd be times that I would want to be recognized everywhere I go. And it's flattering, but it's not easy. Okay, I got to tell you this story. I don't know how much more time we have, but do you remember the playoff game between the Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts, where Lynn Elliott, our kicker, missed 3 field goals?
Yeah,
And if we
yeah.
made just one, we would have won the game. Do you remember that?
Right.
That particular day, it was just frigid, like 20 below zero wind chill. It was just horrible. And Harris Faulkner, who's now on Fox News, she needed somebody to go with to the game. I was like, sure. And she got us into the Price Chopper Suite. So here we are watching the game, comfortable in the Price Chopper Suite. The ladies had commandeered both bathrooms in the suite. So I had to go to the trough.
I remember those
Now-
troughs. They were terrible.
Now, ladies, if you don't know, there's this thing called the trough. So they're not stalls or
Stalls, yeah.
partitions. It is a trough.
Yeah.
The rules of engagement are simple. You come up to the wall. You look face forward. You take care of business. You leave. Right?
Move on.
Rules of engagement. Well, here I am taking care of business, and a guy, I have to, stumbles in. Okay? So he stumbles in,
Arrowhead guy.
standing right next to me. He glances over, Bryan Busby, but he's still.
Oh, no way.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him? It's frozen. You still there?
So
Oh, there we
I
go.
have to go back.
You froze for a second there. You're still frozen, but we can kind of hear you.
in the trough and pee. So I sit out in the seats. And for the rest of the game, I'm out there to hope this stuff refreezes, which it does. And so what's funny is some people come out to me and say, you are a diehard fan to be out here. I'm like, hey, if you only knew the reason I'm really out here. So the rest of the game, I watched it out there. And the game we lost, everybody's in a bad mood. I drove to get us to Arrowhead. And so I didn't turn on the heat in my Jeep. And Harris was getting cold. And so she said, oh, let me turn on the heat. All of a sudden, she's like,
That smell.
sniff, sniff, sniff. What was that? And I had to tell her. And so she's laughing her ass off, thinking it's hilarious. And so whenever I have interns who are cocky and think, I want to be on TV, I want to be recognized everywhere I go, let me tell you a story. And then they kind of go, maybe I don't want that. It's like, yeah, ding, 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 ding. But everything's good in moderation. There are times that you want to be recognized and nobody gives you the time of day. There are times you just want to take care of business and people want to stop. So,
Well, I will say that when you're at Wind Shift, when you left, people were like, "Oh, he's just so nice," because you would actually go and talk to people, which is kind of unusual for somebody that's a public figure. Most of the time, people are bugging you, right? But you actually got up and went and talked to some people at the bar, which I thought was cool, and they appreciated that.
Well, again, they're my customer, and I don't get an
Boom.
opportunity to talk to my customer.
Right, there you go.
Because there's this glass thing and this camera taking a picture of me that's broadcasting into your house, so I never get a chance to say hello, to say thank you. So that's my way of doing it. And what's the toughest thing, honestly, that I'm talking about, and that was a question that Nick or Nigel, I forget which one of you guys asked it, how things have changed since, I think it was you, Nick, that asked. One of the weirdest things now is how to take care of your customer without coming across as arrogant. What I'm talking about is the selfie.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to come across as, hey, I know you want a selfie of me. To come across like, no, I'm good. As opposed to somebody says, God, I don't know how to ask him.
Right.
So what I would do is I'll open the door and say, I don't know if you want this or not. I'm just going to put it out there. If you'd like to take a selfie, I'd be more than happy to. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh my God, I didn't know how to ask you.
Right.
And then there's some people like, no, I'm good. Just meeting you is enough. So, but that's been a tough thing, just how to handle that.
I think just to be a little.
He's back.
Oh, there we go.
What's up, buddy?
I think we need. That's a hard thing, though, in the journalism in our industry as journalists now, though, is to try to keep that connection. I think with our local, because there's, as you said before, there's so many different choices out there now, and everything else that makes it hard for people to judge what the news does.
Right.
How do we keep that connection locally with our customers, with our people? That's a hard thing for us to do.
It is, but that means we have to go up and beyond what we used to do, because we're one of 4 choices, and now we're one of a bazillion, including people Googling stuff, and there's so much misinformation out there, and it's kind of tough to try to bleed through all the differences that are going on out there that are being presented to people. So yeah,
and there are so many fewer local reporters now, whether you're talking print or TV. Even, I mean, there's just there's so fewer, and that connection, I think, to the people is really lost, and that makes it harder.
It makes it more difficult. And didn't we do a story not too long ago that the Star is cutting staff even more?
Yeah. Yep. The print process is moving up to Iowa.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yes.
Yeah.
In that beautiful building that's right off of the downtown loop.
That would make a great brewery.
That would make a great brewery.
Ever drive? That would be a beautiful brewery.
At one time, Channel 9 was thinking about moving into that building before we built our new building out.
Really?
Off of 435, yeah. Which would have been great. See, one thing I do miss about being off of 63rd and 435 is the fact that when we broke ground on that, and we were there, within 2 weeks they said, hey, guess what's going in? Power and light. And the reason we moved out there is because we needed fiber optics, and fiber optics weren't available downtown yet.
Right.
But then when we broke ground, 2 weeks later, we find out, okay, great, it's going in. And imagine all the eateries that we would had a choice of within walking distance.
Yeah, because there's nothing where you guys are at the station now. There's nothing.
Applebee's.
And
the Hy-Vee Grill, which is nice. But Buffalo Wild Wings we have, but they closed. There's some mom and pop Mexican and Asian restaurants there. But yeah, it's slim pickings. More so than what you have down, Drunken Fish and some of the other stuff in Power and Light, which have been nice.
Yeah, that would be cool if the station was down there. Because even at the old station, I mean, there were places you could walk to downtown. So that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool.
Fun. Yep.
Nick, you ready for this last beer? And we'll
I think we got one more.
One more, and then we'll let Brian go.
He's got to go yell at his contractors.
Yeah, I keep looking out the window at him.
I keep waiting for you to throw things at him.
Oh.
But have you visited any other breweries, Brian, in Kansas City? Have you been to any others?
Boulevard. I've done the Boulevard tour. Chris, why am I blanking on his name? Is it Chris Myers?
Yeah, from Crane.
Crane, yes.
Yep.
Brought me a whole case of stuff at the station. And I see him down every once in a while. Those two. Those are the only two that I've actually visited.
Anything that stands out from Crane? Have you ever had their beet beer?
No.
That one. They beet Vice. It's made with actual beets. It's quite red and colorful and stains things, but it's pretty interesting. Yeah. If I can dig one up, I'll let you know. I'll find you one. Yeah, it's a seasonal thing, but if you like beets, you'll love it. If you don't like beets, and it's a sour beer.
Okay,
But
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would probably, I feel like, just the beers that you did, I think you kind of like, as I tell people, one of the stories I tell, I'm like, Bryan likes sours. And you do, because I've had him taste some other things at the brewery. He's like, no, that's not me. So, yeah, you're kind of trending to the sour side of the beer. So, but, that's okay, though.
Okay.
What we got there, Nick?
I like this one. Write drunk, edit sober.
What? Repeat that, please.
Write drunk, edit sober.
It's called Write Drunk, Edit Sober.
Oh, right, as in
Yeah.
Okay.
Fat orange cat.
It's got a big giant pencil beer thing on. Oh, it's got a cat on there, Bryan. Look at that.
It is.
Ooh, nice.
Let's see. What is this? That's a hard to read label. 12% beer project. New England India Pale Ale.
Very good.
All right.
Crack it open.
Here we go.
You like that sound. Have you tried very many IPAs, or do you dig them? Don't? Depends.
It just depends. Yeah. I mean, I'll be open to it for sure, but I think I need a guide. Somebody to take the time to say, no, this is not you. I mean, I just know that the heavier the beer, the more I don't like it. I know that for a fact.
Gotcha.
I mean, was it Guinness?
Uh-huh. Do you think that's heavy?
Well, that's a loaf of bread.
For me.
For you, gotcha.
That's a loaf of bread.
Yeah. It's a loaf of bread combined with motor oil. It's like, no.
The funny thing about that, if you had some of Tony's stouts, because Guinness is on the light end of body and taste.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It's it's a 5.2% beer. It's light in body. It's not going to be super malty or chocolatey or roasty. Yeah, Well, you might not like the other side of the spectrum.
Probably not. And when I do the cat 1 through 5, I know that I'm not going to like probably cat 4 and 5.
Right.
I'll probably stick to cat 1, 2, and 3, but I know there may be other people who want to go all the way to cat 5.
But it's funny though, because a lot of brewers we talk to, some of the styles. Let's take Rodney up at 3 Halves in Liberty. He's like, well, I don't like all the styles I have to brew. I have to brew for the customer. He's like, it's not about me. I don't have to like the style. I just have to brew it. So kind of the same. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
I like this.
It looks like orange juice. Look how orange that is.
Okay.
It's very good.
It's got a little citrusy.
It's very fluffy, if you will.
Fluffy. Like, what's the name of that comedian who calls himself Fluffy?
It's like if you made your orange juice with a blender.
Ah, okay. So it's gonna be like Orange Julius.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. There you go.
What do you think of that?
I like that. It is a little citrusy.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Got some body to it.
The slush was my favorite of the day, though.
Yeah, Mister. I don't like sours.
I don't know who would say that. only an idiot would say that.
So, Bryan, if people wanted to follow you on social media, where do they find you?
Let's see here now. The Bryan Busby on Facebook is the fan page. Bryan Busby KMBC is on Twitter. BBuzzman08 is on Instagram.
Okay.
And then if they want to find him on TV, they can find him on Channel 9, KMBC.
Yeah, exactly.
Weeknights. So are you doing like, we were texting the other night and you're like, I'm about to go on the air. Are you doing like a 9 as well?
Yeah, we started that on the CW a few years ago. It's now an hour long. It used to be just a half hour. But now we've done, a 4 o'clock for an hour until 5. 5:30 is network news. 6 o'clock for a half hour. Then come back and do the 9 and 10. So now I'm doing 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10.
Wow.
I think
That's
we're going
a long day.
It is a long day, but I think we're going to probably split up a little bit now that we've added a noon show on Channel 29.
Oh,
so
really?
Probably what we're going to do is have Neville at least the 3 days he's in, since he's the weekend meteorologist, because he's working today, since we're recording this on a Saturday. He works Saturday and Sunday. He is going to do the noon 3 days a week during the week, which means he'll probably do the noon 4 and 5. Then I'll do just the 6, 9, and 10. Those 3 days he's in, to at least lighten the load a little bit. So that'll be good.
Isn't it interesting that back in the day, the new news was a thing, then it went away, and now it's back.
It's back.
Do you feel like you're still figuring out all of the extra channels now that we've gone digital? Are we still figuring that out?
Oh, sure we are. Oh, yeah. And Gunsmoke and Brady Bunch on,
The dots are that's some of the best programming out there, man. I'm telling you. So what was
This
I
is true.
watching today? I don't even know what I was watching, but it was some old school, but I dig it.
But when we have to cover up for severe weather, oh man, those
Yeah.
people who are watching,
Yeah.
Bonanza are like, put Bonanza back on. I don't care. Whoa.
That's like I always
grandpa.
tell the story of the one time I moved the crossword in a paper from one corner of the page to another, and that was probably one of the worst mistakes in my entire newspaper career.
Well, people, they're creatures of habit.
They are. So, Nick, where can they find us, sir?
You can find the Beers with Nigel podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or most any of your favorite podcast apps. And you can go to beerswithnigel.com. Hey, we got merch now. You can go buy even some holiday Beers with Nigel PJs. And you know what we forgot to do?
Shout out to our sponsors are Dire Oil Graphics.
Your trusted partner for all your branding needs. They specifically like working with brewers. So if you want to get your brand out there, get some swag, go talk to our friends Ronnie and Rachel at direoilgraphics.com. There you go.
Dire Oil.
You know, we're new at this whole sponsor thing with the show, and so we stumble through it all the time.
Well, you can also find us the video version. I tell the people the video version is way more fun than the audio because you get to see people act out. So when Brian makes these voices, we can see his face, which is
and you can see the crew still working.
And you get to see the the special guest on the podcast. So Facebook.com Beers with Nigel. You can always find us there. Where else are we? I think that's where we are.
That's where we're working on a new YouTube page because the video.
Oh yeah. We're gonna go put all the videos on YouTube. So that's the fun part of the podcast is the video. It's the video. Hey Brian, we appreciate you coming on, man. I know
thanks for having me.
We've had to negotiate it a little bit. I want to say the last time I was at Wind Shift, I think there was one of your beers left. Two are already gone. So
wow.
I'm going tonight. We'll see if there's any left, but it was definitely a hit. And it was fun to have you over there and give you the brew day. And as I told people loved it. I was like, Brian did all the things. They're like, he did. I'm like, yeah, he came to work.
That's why I'm probably going to put that on and give you guys a link to it so people can see it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We'll throw it on our page. Now, it was a fun day, but we paid him in beer. He was fine.
Well, there you go. We'll work for booze. I think that's always a good negotiating tool.
And so, those burps were real.
I love this. This is great. Thanks for coming on. It's a whole new side of the Bryan Busby that those of us who have watched you on the news to get to see. So thank you.
My pleasure, guys.
We'll see you soon.
Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Beers with Nigel, a show about beer and other stuff, hosted by Nigel Woodbury and that other guy, Nick Parker. Beers with Nigel is poured for you by Dire Oil Graphics, providing bumper-to-bumper graphic design, promo products, and print services. Find them at direoil.com. Beers with Nigel is a proud member of the Fredcast Network and is available on all of your favorite podcast flavors. Find Beers with Nigel on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and ask Alexa to play the Beers with Nigel podcast.